this completed and ensuring that how do we deliver even better service moving forward this year and moving forward after that.
Yeah, we had 9 inspectors. We had 5 full-time inspectors and 4 part-time inspectors conducting, and that's what those numbers there are just first inspections. We have over 8,000 inspections that they've conducted, and I think we have a pretty good compliance rate because our goal isn't to force abate people. Our goal is to educate people and reduce the amount of fuel out there. That's really the only proactive thing we can do is get all the dead fuel off people's properties and have them comply with a lot of the defensible space rules. In doing that, we've done over 8,000 inspections, and when you look at that, we're looking at about 30 forced abatements. So you're looking at less than 1% of the amount of inspections that we've done that have had to go to forced abatement, and many of those are because people didn't respond to us, and we have a responsibility to protect the community. So it is through, unfortunately, forced abatement that the fire department needs to do to be responsible in order to protect the rest of the community.
And the one thing that we're working on really hard here is that with the district and the city, ensuring that our ordinances and code are consistent, because that's what we don't want. People pointing fingers at the other across the border there. Well, how come they're allowed to do this and we're not? And so working with the city attorney's office, ensuring that, it is fair and equitable for everyone, but we're meeting the needs to ensure that everyone's fire safe, and it's going to happen. Go ahead, Brett.
So the comprehensive wild preparedness, we have wildland pre-fire plans for all the dangerous areas. The dangerous wildland areas, we're aware of them. It's the topography and the fuel that make them dangerous. What we're really worried about is when we have weather conditions that align with that topography and fuel that make it dangerous in the community. So we pre-plan those areas that we know that have topography features and fuel features that make them dangerous, and we have pre-plans so that when other fire departments respond into our area, they can be more familiar with the evacuation routes, the hydrant locations, and the communities that they'll be coming in contact with. We requested a camera to be put on San Marcos Peak. It took about a year for one of the SDG&E cameras through UCSD's program. That was placed this last month on San Marcos Peak. So as you guys know, when we get alerts on watch duty and we pull those up, we now have a fire camera on San Marcos Peak. In its first 2 weeks, it caught 2 fires in Vista, so it automatically is looking for infrared detection for early detection. It caught the fire that we had off to 78 on the freeway. It also started looking at, and we had another fire, and one on the north end towards Deer Springs. So it caught 2 fires the first 2 weeks it was in operation. We're happy about that. We also have a red flag protocol, so when we have red flag warnings, the fire district has put signs up, and when we do a red flag, our inspectors go out and put red flags on there to notify the community. We also unlock the fire access gates, and the fire access gates aren't emergency escape routes for residents. What they are is they're emergency access so that we can get fire engines to the wild and remote areas and quickly so that we can anchor off the heel of the fire and try to contain it at a small rate. So we open those up so that other agencies that are responding in that don't have keys for those locks, they'll be dummy locked and they can get access to it. We'd like to expand that program.
And we are definitely going to do that. And that's the thing, that words matter. And so we want to make sure the public understands what these really are and why we're doing what we're doing. Reached out to Dr. Doyle yesterday at the luncheon, and I say, hey, we've been kind of tossing around the fact of red flags. We want to ensure that everyone's aware in the city and the district what's going on. Would you be open to putting them on the flagpoles at all the schools? And he says, yeah, if you just write it up, we can make that happen. And so these are the things that we're looking at doing to make sure, as I've been doing my due diligence and so has the executive team, lessons learned. Well, people said we didn't know, no one told us. We were even talking about signage not only in the district, but here in the city. And that, out front here at the Civic Center, having a red flag on that pole as well, and signage showing, because we have people that come in and out of this building on a regular basis, just drive by it. We're going to take every opportunity to ensure that the public knows that we're in a red flag warning. And well, what does that mean? And so on our website for the district, as well as the city, we're going to walk through exactly what we need to do to ensure that you're protected and your family and loved ones are protected. Just hearing a gentleman say on that video, he thought his sister was leaving he has to live with that for the rest of his life, live right next door. That's tough. But it's in that preparation part that's key for us in ensuring that hopefully that doesn't happen to anyone.
We mentioned joint training on there. Chief Ford and I have been involved in the county wildland drill in preparing that. It's in San Marcos this year. We rotate it around. Sometimes it's in Chula Vista and South Bay. Sometimes it's in the center. We've continued to be involved in that. The department is involved in that, and that's where we bring in all state, local, and federal resources, and we go through a wildland preparedness drill every year. This year it's in May in San Marcos. In addition to that, CAL FIRE and the local North Zone agencies do a battalion chiefs extended attack exercise, and that's where we put the battalion chiefs in the hot seat in the back of their vehicle, and we give them a rapidly expanding wildland fire, and we put a tremendous amount of pressure on them on giving them inputs on the radio and overwhelming them so that they can learn to delegate and they can work under the pressure of having 30 or 40 fire engines coming in needing an assignment and coordinating with CAL FIRE, the aircraft, and the police department when it comes to evacuations. So we do those drills annually with our battalion chiefs as well. So we try to make sure that we're prepared when we get a response. And we do work with CAL FIRE and San Marcos and the adjoining agencies to prepare for a wildland fire every year. So that's the regional coordination. We do countywide training. We work with the aircraft. We have 2 air tankers that are based out of Ramona with an air attack. There's also 2 county helicopters out of Gillespie Field, and the city has 2 helicopters out of Montgomery Field, as well as some contract aircraft. And usually we know when they are, and they move them around the state. During this last High Wildland event, they moved 8 air tankers into Ramona, and they had a C-130, which is a heavy aircraft that was in Ramona as well. So the state and the local government agencies, we work together to upstaff as well as pre-position. So we get state level support. So when those fires were going on, we sent 7 personnel from Vista up to LA to fight those fires. But at the same time, since we were getting fire weather, OAS allowed us to pre-position strike teams in the county. We had a strike team in the North Zone in San Marcos. We had one in Central at Rancho Santa Fe and Forest Ranch. Then they had one in San Diego, and sometimes we have them in Heartland. So they move around. Chief Ford coordinated that for about a week. He was moving those resources around. So every time there's a fire, we get a lot of resources on them very quickly in order to keep and contain the fire small. So we had several fires in San Diego. You guys know the one in South Bay and Chula Vista right now has grown large. The rest of them were all contained to less than 5 acres. San Diego had one in La Jolla. They had one in Rancho Bernardo. We had several up the I-15 corridor, and we had a couple in Vista. But we were all able to contain those because we had rapid resources to place on them.
And it is quite impressive for me to see this. And like you mentioned, that Chief Ford was involved in a lot of moving pieces, and he keeps me aware of what's going on. And to say that I'm in awe of what our personnel do here in the city, in the North Zone, and the county, it's amazing. And that it's all working, and that it's through the support of government and the training and the community that's the only way this thing is going to work. Again, the number of text messages and emails that have been going on over the last month and a half has been very daunting, but very worthwhile. So again, I like to thank my folks for all the stuff that they do when it comes to protecting our community. I sent to the city manager a link today. County Supervisor Desmond had met with several fire chiefs in the area and was looking at providing services and resources to support the efforts that are happening right now and that we're discussing. So again, it's that coordination from all of you to us that makes this work. So greatly appreciate it.
So CAL FIRE upstaffs and they move their resources around. We have mutual threat zones that we've worked with CAL FIRE to designate in the city of Vista. So pretty much what it is a half mile from any high wildland area in the fire district that encroaches on the city. We've designated that as a mutual threat zone. What that does is that gives us the opportunity to use CAL FIRE resources because we consider it a mutual threat to state land as well as local land, and that allows us to use basically CAL FIRE's resources at no cost to the city. So we've designated those areas. They're pre-designated in CAD. We have a common radio frequency when we have those calls so that we're integrated right in with CAL FIRE, and we have the availability of aircraft, hand crews, and a lot of the resources that we don't usually provide as a city when it comes to hand crews, dozers, and aircraft. And we seamlessly will be able to run the fire together, and we do when we have those calls.
Brett touched base on this a little earlier as far as deployment. And the thing that I want to keep in mind, and I've learned this over the last year and a half, is that when our folks are deployed, they're gone for 2, possibly 3 weeks. And that's a long time to be away from your family, from your department, and the mental strain that our personnel go through. We want to ensure that we get peer support for them and make sure we reach out to the families. And that's something that we are fact-checking, ensure that if that didn't happen, that can't happen again. I was talking to a captain that was deployed on one of the USAR teams, and it was basically shoring up the structures and body recovery. And I asked him, how is he doing? And you could see it on his face that it was tough. And that's something that we're not used to seeing daily. And it's ensuring that we have the resources for our personnel as well as their family to make sure everyone can work through these challenges. And this is the cooperation that is guaranteed here in the county and in the state, that resources are shared. But we also got to make sure that once that incident is stabilized, that the healing begins for those that want to talk through things and work through things. You look at 2024, 13 local, state, federal emergency incidents, 67 personnel were deployed. And those are Vista firefighters and all the pictures that you've seen, so. And this is where I kind of mentioned about lessons learned, and this is what we're trying to do right now, is to ensure that, be it with the weed abatement program through the district and city, that we tighten up, that we hear from the directors from the district and their concerns from their constituents, and that we take them seriously. Because again, we recognize we had a couple of blind spots when it came to trying to roll out this daunting task. And as I said earlier, I own that as the fire chief, and we will do better moving forward. This is where I will come to you as well as to the district, the second bullet point here, header, that the development of new ordinances. That involves the city attorney's office. It involves the council to get things passed to assist us to clear out some of the things that we need, to teach people about defensible space requirements and removing all the dead and dying fuels. And especially that second part there in that second bullet, including dead palm fronds. We recognize that's a hotbed for some. And there are videos, many videos out there that show when those things catch fire, what happens. That's why we're stressing the importance of cleaning this up. We don't want to give that fire any more additional fuel, and that can cause more death and destruction. There's also something that we're working with the city attorney's office as well. We're working through with the district to see aerial inspections. And, obviously there's legality when it comes to these type of things, but it's a high-tech operation, and so we're working through that. But I think it's a great opportunity for us to ensure that we are getting the most accurate information, and it's very in-depth. I'm not gonna go into it, but it shows you the innovation that we're looking for, the forward-leaning, and ensure that we deliver the best service, and how can we do better. And we are open to hearing concerns. We're open to hearing ideas as we get emails and questions as far as, have you looked at this? Have you thought of that? We take no offense to that at all. And so we do appreciate the participation from the public, from the council. And I ask you to continue to hold us to that standard and see what we can do. Even internally, we challenge our staff to come up with ideas. How can we better serve our community? So it's about being prepared. And with it, the thing that I've learned reading and understanding how this goes, it's about preparing yourself, preparing your property, and preparing to evacuate. And as we master that, there's a couple of websites. It's the district website and the city's website. And we have the language, the links to ensure that you're safe, your family's safe, and what to do in these emergencies. There's also apps available. And, all technology is not good technology, so it's using it responsibly. It can cause anxiety when you start going on these apps and seeing what's happening around the world. Because I can tell you with the LA fires, I had hundreds of text messages and phone calls from family and friends across the country asking, hey, are you guys okay? We see that it's burning down there. And I kind of had to politely explain to them, well, let me tell you about this map thing called California and where we fall into the space. But this is what happens in that instant reporting, as I talked about a little earlier. But we will continue to push forward on this. We will ensure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure the public's informed and they're prepared, because there's no excuse. We've seen the death and destruction that's caused when you're not prepared. And with that, take any questions or concerns that you have.
Chief, thank you very much. That's a great presentation. I really appreciate all of the hard work that you did to put it together, and Chief Davidson and all the battalion chiefs and all the firefighters that supported you in bringing this information together. I wanted to compliment you again. I did yesterday, but I wanted to say it again, especially with all of our firefighters here on getting that fire out on Mar Vista in a very short amount of time, 21 minutes from dispatch. Was very impressive. And when I went out and saw the scene, because it was literally across from where I was, and I saw the fire and smoke come up. So after it was all out and everything was calm, I went to see the aftermath, and I was really impressed how much combustible material did not burn because our firefighters got there and put it out quickly. That was really impressive. Was that, you said that was one of the fires detected by that new thermal camera? Well, that's really impressive equipment. I'd love to hear more about that and know whether or not we've got enough of those or more of those. I mean, because obviously with fire, getting to it quickly is the name of the game. So I'd be curious to continue a conversation in the future about how we are able to communicate with citizens in an emergency. I've been asking the Sheriff's Department and the city management for the last 10 years to do something better than the helicopter announcements. It's often been a source of frustration, and sometimes by the time the helicopter is close enough overhead, and I come out in the front yard to hear it, and it says, suspect is armed and dangerous, stay in your house. And I think, well, I was in the house. So, you know, I think all of us up here are utilizing text messaging in our campaigns, and I know that that has some imperfections when it's looked at through the lens of emergency preparedness, because the way we do it is obviously going to miss some people. But it's certainly going to, you know, I mean, I can draw a circle on an area in the map, create a list, and text those people and do it in pretty short order. If we're prepared, we'd have the ability to communicate via text message. And it might not be as good as the Amber Alert system or other emergency systems, but it'd be nice to know that we're looking into some more proactive communication mechanisms and even emails that are, you know, geotagged, even if it's just specific to a zip code. It'd be nice to know that we have that ability.
Yeah, I can address that if you'd like. Alert San Diego is for you to register your cell phones, and so that you register your address and your cell phone on that, so you get cell phone alerts. What the Genesis Protect that's on there, after the Paradise Fire, we had evacuation zones and a grid in San Diego. What we did is we went to polygons. We worked closely with the sheriff's office, or any law enforcement. But in the city of Vista, the sheriff's department's responsible for the road closures as well as the evacuations. In the unincorporated area of the county, the sheriff's department is responsible for the evacuations. CHP is responsible for the road closures. But we work well with CHP and the sheriff's department. When we have a fire, their emergency coordinator comes out and our local traffic deputy comes out. We work together with them on Genesis Protect. And if you guys looked at the Watch Duty app at all, it will show you those polygons. San Diego and Vista, we've vetted all of those polygons. So we can evacuate small portions of Vista or large portions of Vista. But the state rule is that if we have a fire that threatens any home within 2 hours, that's a mandatory evacuation. Anything that's threatened beyond that is an evacuation warning. So we're really good about liaisoning with our law enforcement counterparts and setting those up probably within the first 30 minutes of an incident.
Now, do citizens, you said citizens need to, do they have to download an app?
They just have to register on the app. So because I won't say nobody, a lot of people still have home phone lines, and the Genesis Protect app, as soon as we hit that, it'll tell us all the phones, and we can do a mass alert. It'll call 100 phone numbers every minute and provide through the county EOC the alert. But what we like to do is, because cell phones aren't always registered to the home, what we like to do is have people register their cell phones to their address. So if there's an emergency alert from San Diego County through the Genesis Protect app, through the EOC, it'll alert everybody's cell phones. We already alert people's cell phones by their cell phone tower right now. So if you're in the area where it's being evacuated, it will ping to every cell phone that's in that area. But let's say you're not in that area. If you're registered, it'll also ping your cell phone and alert you. So if you're in San Diego City and we're evacuating your home, you're going to get it on your cell phone if you've registered through the app.
Good. That's good to know that we can alert everyone within the vicinity of a particular cell site.
Yeah. We had a lot of problems in the Cedar Fire in 2003. We had a lot of fatalities, and we had a fire. The fire burned through Lakeside and Verona, and that's the majority of where our fatalities were at 2 and 3 in the morning, where people died in their homes. We have since then improved the system. After the Paradise Fire in 2017 burned down the city of Paradise, we went to this Genesis Protect app, and the entire state of California is going to it. San Diego was probably the 3rd county in the state of California to adopt it, and we just rolled it out last April for last fire season.
That's great. That's good information. Well, certainly this has been an opportunity for the council. I know it has been for me to learn. I've been asking some good questions and just learned about the Little Yellow Buddy program tonight, and Jim Wold, the retired firefighter that checks and inspects all of our hydrants. It was a question I asked the city manager about a week ago, I know we're testing the hydrants, but who actually does it? And have we seen the reports, and who specifically is responsible? Because I want to make sure that that our infrastructure is prepared to respond. And certainly, Chief, your point is well taken, and the point that was made in 60 Minutes is well taken. When the fire is driving 100 miles an hour, there is little that can be done at that moment. But I think it's also worth stressing that there's a lot that can be done to prepare before we get into those circumstances. I think it's important that we advocate regionally for fire breaks, for reduction of combustible material. One of the things that I've been very diligent and vigilant about is making sure that when citizens reach out and they have complaints about neighbors with combustible material, that we make very clear that we're not going to tolerate for any length of time failure to act on behalf of property owners. We're going to bring a public hearing and a nuisance abatement immediately, and we're going to take action. That's whether it's a fire abatement code violation or other code violation. It tends to be, we have a lot of out-of-town property owners, and they tend to be the only ones that I see. There are a few bad actors that live here, but most of the ones that are not taking action tend to be the out-of-town owners. So I think we'll all share, the belief that those things should be mitigated and mitigated quickly. The people that live here in our city tend to want to take care of these things, even though it is a big expense, but they know how important it is to protect their property and their neighbor's property. So, and lastly, just repeat what I said yesterday. I'm really proud that this city is a city with so many brand new fire apparatus, new engines. We've got the best equipment in the county, and it doesn't happen by accident because, I look at those other cities, and I'm not going to name names, but you know which ones I'm talking about, that don't have a lot of new fire engines. In fact, they have very few new apparatus. So we're really proud of what we've done as a council and what the city's done in your department and the advanced forward planning your department. The fact that when we have an engine that's beyond its new and vigorous life, that we're ready to replace it with a new engine, that's a big deal. And that doesn't happen in other cities. So we're really proud of that and proud of our fire department for making that happen, and our city management team and our budget team for keeping the pennies and dollars straight, in our council for putting that ahead of everything else as a priority. So now I want to recognize Councilmember Contreras for a few more questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I'm curious to see if there's a map. You showed a map that shows the fire risk zones, right, and different levels of severity. I'm just curious, as a kind of like a data point and a way to analyze our city as well, if there is a map like this that also overlays population density. And if we don't have one, I would really, really like to see that. I think we need to have a much more robust and informed conversation that, this problem is just going to get worse and worse, right? We see rains bring a lot of like mustard and invasive grasses, right? And then the extreme dryness just makes it a huge fire load. So fuel for the fires. But I want to be able to have a conversation about how we evacuate folks. I also think that in tandem with that, I would love to see us do some kind of a safety fair that is focused on fire and evacuation. I'm thinking, is that something that we could do in the downtown and bring the apparatuses and have all folks that, participate in fire and evacuation? So it would be our fire department, right? Maybe the San Diego sheriffs, and potentially even at the AVO, we could have a Q&A with local and regional fire personnel. I think it'd be a great opportunity for the public to be able to have some kind of a Q&A and really start to open up the dialogue with our community. And for this to be bilingual as well.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
But being able to start having these types of conversations, so that way at least one person in every home knows what to do. I'm really concerned about also different populations that may have higher risks, right? So I'm curious if there's some kind of a population risk assessment that takes into account folks that don't have access to transportation, right, for evacuation, folks that need assistance, whether that's they have certain medical needs, right? I don't even have any idea of what that looks like in our city if we were to have that information, which I don't even know how we get it, right? But if that's
I have a guy.
We have that information. So as part of our accreditation, we do a community risk assessment, and it does do the demographics of the population, the age, the vulnerable population, where the elderly, where the very young is. It separates it by income level as well. Population density is one of them, and then risk. And then also overlaying this map, as you guys know that SDG&E is proactively shutting off electricity. As part of that program, anybody that's on oxygen at home or has medical needs, their addresses are identified and their grid isn't shut down, or they notify folks well in advance so they can evacuate their homes, so that people that have special needs are well informed ahead of time that their power is going to be shut off, so they can make arrangements for portable oxygen equipment, and better yet, to evacuate the area and go someplace else. So we do have that, and we do actively look at that. So, and part of our strategic plan is you have the fire chief that wants us to do as much community involvement as possible. And I think the fire district, in our strategic plan, the community, as well as the council, wants us to do more public education. So I think you're going to see us do more fire education, especially in the area of wildland fire and the dangers to the public.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic to know. And city manager, is this something, I love to hear that we have these data points, that they're being utilized. Is this ever anything that we've seen at the council level in the past 10 years where we've gone through this information?
I don't think so. We've given the strategic plan to council, but I don't think we've covered it in a meeting, so we can certainly do that.
I would love for that to be a new adopted practice, also because this is public facing, right? So, folks tune in. I run into folks all the time, and it's just wild that, they're like, oh yeah, every once in a while I see a council meeting on YouTube, right? So, but yeah, I think the more that we can do community involvement, right, make it fun as well, but just letting folks know this is how the city is preparing for the potential of fire, right? And that risk just grows and grows.
And
Oh, were you going to say something?
in our risk assessment, it might be quite dry. It's over 100 pages, but we look at the rail system, the water system, the swift water risk. We look at the hazardous materials occupancies. So it's a holistic look of all the types of emergencies that we deal with, from swift water to hazmat inspections to rail incidents and things like that, and as well as wildfire. It has a lot to do with effective firefighting response force and response time. So
Well, that's why it's fire and rescue, right?
yeah.
There you go.
So, but I mean, that really could, we could have multiple safety fairs and it be seasonal even, right? You know, because we do have flood risks. So yeah, that's great. I think, because we can't give it all, right? And one thing, people are gonna just doze off. But that's where we can bring our communications folks in and make this something that, you know, the public can digest and start to get just more information about, you know, where even, I love that you provided information of like where you can sign up for things like that. The more that we can get that out into the public, the better. Great job on expanding for weed abatement. I know it's really difficult, but it's something that we have to do. And I really appreciate that you're open to the feedback that we receive from our constituents. You know, I had a few constituents myself. And the fact that you're saying, hey, you know what, we're gonna make this process better. That is such a critical component of good leadership. And I really, really applaud you for that. And thank you so much for having that stance. The other thing is, I'm curious about what we can do for, you know, hardening around the wildland urban interface.
And actually, interesting enough, I was doing some reading on that. There are a couple of websites that actually give us some pointers how to do that. And those are the things that we're going to incorporate. And at these, let's just call them workshops, and events out in the public, these are the things that we're going to also discuss with the public. I'd like to acknowledge the district. They actually have a couple of events coming up here where neighbors are actually having us come in. They're opening their homes or fields, so to speak, for us to come in and address some of their concerns when it comes to that. So when you're saying that, that's why I was smiling, like this is definitely on our radar. And it'd be almost like our open houses, that we would hit different parts of the community to ensure that those that can't travel via a vehicle or something like that, that it's in their immediate area and they can participate. And working with the communications team and getting those recorded and uploaded on the district as well as the city's website. So this is all in our wheelhouse, and we're more than excited about it because we take great pride in this and ensuring that we do render the best service to those that visit, that live here and work here.
Thank you so much for that. And my last question is actually for City Manager. I'm just curious, you know, we are on the cutting edge. We're ensuring that we have the proper technology and equipment for our firefighters and paramedics. Where is that funding coming from? Are we talking about part of it being the additional sales tax, part of it being the cannabis sales tax revenue, and, you know, do we have the ability financially to continue to provide these types of cutting edge services, technology, equipment to our firefighters?
That's a great question. So as far as the equipment and the vehicles go, we do have a replacement schedule. So when we buy a vehicle, we start budgeting for replacement of that vehicle and we carry that cost. That just comes out of our regular budgeting process on an annual basis, so it's coming out of the general fund. With respect to continuing to provide that level, we can provide and replace what we have today, but if we're going to build the department any larger, we're going to have to look at a new revenue source to support that.
Okay, and is that time horizon coming soon, or do we have like 20 more years to figure out how we're going to build everything that we need to protect our population?
I would say we're in good shape, but in the next 5 to 10 years, yeah, we have to make some decisions about how we're going to fund future improvements to the services we provide.
Okay. Yeah, because, I have to be on record continuously saying this point, but, my district is the only district in the city of Vista that does not have a fire station. And that happens to be the district where we're seeing an enormous amount of density come in. And it also happens to be, if you turn to the heat map here showing fire zones, the winds, if they're blowing, I remember the Lilac Fire, I was 2 streets away from mandatory evacuation, and I live off North Santa Fe, close to Stater Brothers. And I see here, right, my district is the northwestern corner of Vista. I have a lot of concerns. I have a lot of concerns of continuing to build density where we don't have the protection that we need. And it takes a long time to build a fire station. We're learning that with the $5 million that we got and all the extra millions that we had to kick in between the Fire Protection District and the city to actually just modify and retrofit Fire Station 3, right? Which is a critical fire station, right, off of Old Taylor. So, and I think, if we were looking at doing another fire station, I want to say, I remember seeing like a $43 million figure, right? So that's an incredible amount. And I just want us to be thinking about that now, because 5 to 10 years is not very far away. Whoever is on the council is going to have the ability to really navigate the community through challenging discussions when it comes to financial priorities. But thank you so much for doing what you do with what we can afford to give you. It's incredible, and I really look forward to having many more discussions at the council level to talk about appropriating the right amount from our budget to continue this excellence and and just learn more. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
I just want to piggyback some of the comments that were made earlier relative to the fire trucks and the engine and those things. That's great. And thank you so much for that support. But you support us in so many other ways too. Our PPE, our turnout gear that we wear. We have over 100 breathing apparatus that we're about to put into service. All these things assist us in rendering the best service to our community. So it isn't just about the fire engine. It's the opportunity to send our folks to be trained across the country and bring back that knowledge and that skill set to assist us. So it's amazing the support that we have from you. So don't think by any stretch of the imagination that we don't appreciate what you're doing for us and how much you have done for us and you do for us. But I also have obligation to you and to the public to ensure that I'm forecasting, that's the word you used a few years ago, relative to the EMT program, what our needs are. And I can tell you, working with Mr. Conley here has been a true pleasure because he listens and he is about mapping it out. Well, what is this going to look like? And I appreciate that, and it puts onus on us that I just can't go to you and say, hey, we need more money. No. What does this mean? What does this look like? Is it applying for grants? Is there other funding out there? Can we work with Oceanside or North County and some joint ventures? And these are all the things that we're exploring to ensure that we're fiscally responsible as well. So again, thank you for all your support when it comes to our needs being met.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
I'm grateful for the presentation. I cannot tell you, and I'm sure we all have gotten emails, text messages, and phone calls since these fires broke out. I was unfortunate enough to have gone up there last week and saw a lot of what took place. I pray to God that never happens to any surrounding communities or ever again. It is just massive devastation. So with that being said, I do want to take a moment to thank all the men and women here today that serve in our fire department as well as our deputies, because all of you are what keep us safe. And for all those that were on the strike team that went up to Palisade and the other surrounding areas, thank you for your service and being away from home. You had mentioned grants, and so I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, because in the past I had been told a large portion of the budget for fire mitigation comes from grant funding. Is that accurate?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
What I was told in the past is that a large portion of fire mitigation comes from grant funding. So when you're going into clear debris or going into different areas, it is reliant upon, in some situations, that we have grant funding to pay for that to happen.
That is, but you have to apply for it, right? And so that is the key, that we're taking every opportunity to keep our eyes and ears open when it comes to these opportunities. And again, what works well in the fire service is when there's collaboration, right? When you look at maps and if it's overlying, when you talk about Oceanside, North County, and other departments, can we share some of these resources, especially as we look at the county and state level, because that's what they want. That's being responsible. And so we're always looking out for that. And those are the funds that we would use for that. Innovative programs, working with Oceanside right now that could address some of the fuel management. And you'll hear more about that down the road. But again, it's recognizing that we have to work together in order to, again, give the best service to the public.
And I am glad to hear that. And I say that because that was one of my next question is what type of resources and action plans are we taking? Because we can't just leave it left alone, right? I know that we are not the only city, right? So when I hear joint ventures to try and clear that up and share resources to do that, I think it's valuable and important because one of the biggest things I hear about, especially in my neck of the woods, is the Buena Park Trail that we have and fire mitigation over there. And it is just such a large swath, but I know that we are not responsible for the entirety of it, right? And so there becomes some nuance of what happens. You know, I look at this fire map, and while I am literally 2 streets out of it, it does not provide me any confidence that a fire would not take my home if one were to break out in that canyon. And so it's that to me from the abatement standpoint. I mean, I know you all go through tremendous training, and I am grateful that you all do it because I've heard from every fire department or every firefighter that I've talked to how important that training is. And so now is really the time to put it in action. And I have all the confidence that that's what you're doing to make that happen. But that's probably my largest concern because, you know, you're talking billions and billions of dollars to replace what's happened up north. And the fact that there was nothing they could do. You know, you have 100-mile winds kick up, as the video said, but I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure out that when you have 100-mile-per-hour winds and 8,000 structures on fire, nothing's stopping it. You know, it's trying to bottle up a hurricane or a tornado, and it's just not feasible. So that's my rant. I do want to thank you, the Mar Vista Fire, 21 minutes to put that out. I'm glad that the cameras are there. To the mayor's point, if we do need more of those resources as far as thermal cameras, please let us know. And as you have always, always done, if there are resources that you need from this council, we don't know unless you let us know. And you've all been very good at communicating that, but especially given the circumstances that we fall into, the public outcry. And I love your idea of doing a public forum hosted by the city to try and get more engagement, even if it's a social media campaign where you work with any of the council members or work with our team or do it yourself. You all do a great job social media as well. But I am all for that because the education needs to go out on what can be done to prevent tragedies like this from happening. And that's it. You know, the only thing I'll say is this. If people that don't think that they're going to be impacted, my wife's family 10 years ago when there was a fire in Carlsbad ran right up the SDG&E canyon. And the only thing that saved their house was a firefighter putting a pump in their pool and spraying down the hillside. And when Allie and I met, you could still see the burn marks that went all the way up to the concrete fence along the hill. So it is a very serious thing, and I hope that our community will take it serious. And I really, really am grateful for you being here tonight and for all the work that you're doing.
Deputy Mayor Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for this incredible presentation. Thank you to our fire department and to all of our supporting agencies because this is more than a City of Vista issue. This is affecting the state of California and the entire nation. I'm absolutely stunned by the events that have occurred. And we know that there will likely only be more destruction with extreme weather events, as we're seeing with climate change. It's shocking and heartbreaking to see how people are losing their lives. And many of our families and our communities, we feel at risk too. And so to know that we have the confidence of our fire chief and our entire fire department that we're mapping out the risks is really important. And so I'm really grateful that we're having this presentation tonight. I'm glad our communications team is on it. We're going to be able to put this out to the public so that everybody has a little bit more information. That is crucial. And I really appreciate the thoughts from everyone about the resources that are needed here. We might think that we can work under pressure as elected officials, but we have no idea. And more resources are going to be needed to address the heightened fire risk in our communities. And some of those resources are policy. And everything that you're describing with weed and fuel abatement, I get in my mind these iconic images of palm trees. And once a beautiful, iconic symbol of California has turned in my mind to be truly terrifying. And so am I right to understand that we don't include palms in our fuel abatement or our requirements for cleanup at this time?
Currently, we do in the fire district, but we haven't revised the city's ordinance to include them. We are going to present an ordinance to you very shortly that includes the defensible space requirements so that they're Underwriter Laboratories' proven ability to protect a home, and we're going to integrate that into the code so that we can enforce that. But it really takes, we can be reactive, and I think we are very good at being reactive and attacking the fire. But where we need the help is enforcement is part of it, but really we need to get community buy-in. Yep. And if we can get community buy-in to understand what is going to protect their homes, what's going to keep them insured, and then we can translate that. It's really a whole community that we need on board in order to do that. Some of the limitations is we do check up on every citizen complaint. We follow up on those. The limitation when we do weed abatement is we have to do the enforcement from a public way. If we can't see in somebody's backyard because all we can see is their front driveway, then I can't enforce it. We have to do it from a legal way. We're looking at doing aerial inspections because it's public domain at 1,000 feet, and then we can see in everybody's backyards and we can reduce fuel. But again, we need the community to be on board. We need our elected officials to be on board because you guys know anytime we enforce something, we get more complaints. But we need the community to be on board so that we can reduce the fuel out there because it's not an individual property. Yes, individual properties contribute to their own demise. The problem is with wildfire is that your property affects the entire community and endangers the rest of the community.
And the
So
embers spread,
that's what
right?
we want to do.
Like we've seen. And I think you make a great point as well about insurance and for homeowners to know that this jurisdiction has incredibly high standards, and our enforcement is for the peak of safety that we're providing for our community. And I totally understand that it is hard to roll out new initiatives, and we've got your back. So it
Thank
takes
you.
some time, but I know that what we're doing is the right thing, and I have full confidence in you, and I really appreciate this presentation, and I know that the public really appreciates all the work that you do, and we are eternally grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to reiterate the fact that we're working with the city attorney's office with some of these initiatives looking to roll out, because I don't want people thinking that we're just kind of arbitrarily coming through and trying to slap you around. That isn't it at all. They've been a great asset for us to ensure that we're in compliance and that we're not overstepping our authority. So please, everyone, know that we are working really diligently with the city attorney's office.
We keep Beverly really busy.
Yeah, poor Beverly.
Councilmember Fox.
Thank you, Mayor. I also just want to echo the gratitude that a lot of my other council has tonight. I know that, like you said on one of the first slides, you guys wear a lot of hats, and so it's I know it's not an easy job. I had a couple questions. First, I was in the LA area the weekend that the fires burst out, and the energy in the area was obviously, it was a very somber time up there. So I also was getting some of those evacuation notices and some of those on my phone, including the one that went out by mistake because I was in southern Los Angeles County. So when I was getting those, was that through that Genesis system? Do you know?
It's part, they've broken up LA County into Genesis like we have, but it's actually, yes, it's part of Genesis, but it really goes through their EOC, and it's called Robbie would know better, it's called a WEPA. But it's basically almost like what we used to call reverse 911, but it's for your cell phone system. So what it does is it pings every cell phone that hits a cell phone tower within that Genesis Protect area is going to get the message.
Okay. Yeah, and I know that my wife's family was in the Pasadena area, and we were getting the updates from them. They were getting the alerts all night and everything. So I know it was working pretty well up there for them. I keep going back to the word unstoppable was used quite often in the video, and you know, when I hear words like that, it means that, you know, we have to get ahead of things, right? If you can't stop it when it's happening, that means we have to get ahead of it, which it sounds like is what you guys have been trying to do with increasing that weed abatement program from 1,000 homes to over 7,000 just this year, which seems pretty fortuitous that was taking place. So great job on that. My question on that is are there areas that are jurisdiction to other agencies that you might not have access to, where you would that you'd want to be able to get in for abatement? You know, I know that like transit and schools and Vista Irrigation, all those are different areas overseen by different jurisdictions. Are there any jurisdictional issues like that at all?
We contact the county when it's county property. When it's city property, we talk to the city. When it's the transit district or Caltrans, the county is really good about us talking about, they've cleared Buena Creek, Gopher Canyon when we've made requests. If we have other requests off Vista Way and it's in the county, when it's in the city, we coordinate with Public Works really well. So we have no issues, especially when it's a public agency. It's pretty easy to get compliance. We even work with SDG&E to make sure they clear around power lines and they trim trees. SDG&E is probably one of the more proactive power companies in the state in doing that. So that's generally not an issue. Our issue is access to see the inspection from a public way. So, but we're going to get better at it. And like I said, we can reduce the fuel. That's probably the best thing we can do proactively. When you talk about fires we can't stop, the Cedar fire, if you guys remember, it hit Miramar. It jumped 10 lanes of freeway, and the only thing that kept it from taking Genesee Canyon down to Mount Soledad to the Pacific Ocean was Miramar Naval Air Station and the Miramar dump, the landfill that's there. So that was enough space to finally stop the half-mile embers that were traveling there. So generally in a wind-driven fire, we anchor the fire from behind, we attack the flanks in front of the fire. When the flames get over 12 to 20 feet, there's really nothing we can do. Our standard for safety zones is 4 times the flame length. So in order for us to protect or even be in front of the fire, we have to have a distance of separation of 4 times the flame length. Because in Southern California, we have this terrible fuel called brush, and it can be 10 feet high. We can get, with wind, 40, 80-foot flames off of there. When we get flame lengths that are over 20 feet, the aircraft become ineffective at the head of the fire, and we turn into a life safety mode. We are evacuating, and we're protecting the house as we can, and we're moving away from the front. And as soon as the weather changes and those flames die down, then we're able to actively engage the front of the fire. Before that, we're really regulated to attacking the flanks and coming at it from behind and evacuating everything that's in front of it.
No, thank you for that. I mean, it sounds like even more so that how important that preparation is, and so that why this presentation and ones like it are going to be so important going forward. I also remember you mentioning you getting together with organizations like the Vista Irrigation District and some of the other local organizations. So thank you for that. I actually got a question yesterday from one of the irrigation district members about coordinating with different equipment and things like that, so that if someone is on location and with, you know, like a lot of you guys have some overlap in equipment usage and breathing apparatus and things like that. Is that something that you guys already look into?
Just so I'm following what you're asking,
Yes.
sharing of equipment?
Not sharing, but like having similar equipment in case like there's a need for more.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yes. When it comes to dozers, Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, any kind of the oxygen tanks, breathing apparatus, anything like
Oh,
that,
sure.
that would be things that they may have that you may need as well. Just so if there's some malfunctions or you need more, that you're trained on similar equipment, basically.
Yes, yes. And that's all part of training, right? Making sure that we are able to operate together. And if not, what are those shortcomings, so to speak, and how do we overcome those? So there is always that communication through our training division, our battalion chief of training, working with other communities here in the North Zone and the county, and things like that. So to ensure that, yeah, we are able to work together.
Beautiful.
We're part of the North Zone, so we have 16 agencies in the north. We have a common EOM, we have a common dispatch center, but we will try to provide a common spec for our personal protective clothing. We try to get on board with the same breathing apparatus. So we try to do everything as much as we can similarly. And we get together with all of those agencies every 3 months to do joint training, because it's always better to know our adjacent partners in San Marcos and Oceanside and Carlsbad. The better we know each other. You guys know relationships is what really makes a lot of things happen. And us having a pre-established relationship with the CAL FIRE chiefs and with the other chiefs around us make emergencies go much, much smoother.
Thank you.
And always ensuring Vista first.
There is that.
I like that.
I know we're all intent that the conversation continues on this subject. Look forward to further productive conversations with our fire department and all of our agency partners and elected officials and every member of the fire service. And because we are still in the presentation portion of the meeting, applause is still in order. So let's say one more thank you to all of our firefighters. Thank you very much. All right. Anything else on that subject for the good of the order? Councilman, do you have one more thing?
One quick last thing. I know you guys made some new social media pages. Any shout outs you want to give for those for people to keep up to date with what you guys are up to?
Where is he? There he is. BC Holly. Stay-
Very good.
Marketing guy have to do it,
That was Instagram and what other social? Instagram and Facebook, and you can even sign up for a once monthly newsletter. All right. Very good. All right, we'll look forward to that. Thank you all. All right. Oh, absolutely, that's okay. Councilmember O'Donnell.
I
hold on.
apologize. I don't mean to prolong the conversation, so I will be
okay.
quick. Two things. One, maybe share that with us via email so we can blast it out and let everybody know how to get in touch with the fire department. Eucalyptus trees, that is what I meant to ask earlier because they are like a tinderbox, are they not?
Yeah, eucalyptus trees are a non-native species to Southern California. They were put through here with the Santa Fe Railroad for railroad ties, and they never worked out.
So you'll note that one of our next subjects is eucalyptus trees and our abatement of them. So I don't know if we have the information, and maybe this is more for the city manager or just our public works, but if we know where the clusters of eucalyptus trees are in our city, because I think that would be excellent information for fire abatement or just knowledge of that in case a fire does break out so we can be prepared and know what we're getting ourselves into. So I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to sit up here and tell you what to do, but it's just information I think that might be useful.
Thank you.
Anything else on this subject?
One last thank you from me. Thank you for the darling goodies, okay? And I know the community's going to look forward to seeing more from you. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other comments, thank you very much, Chief, and thank you to all of our firefighters. We'll take a 3-minute recess. Thank you, sir. All right, we will be back to order, and that will bring us to oral communications. And we will begin with Joe Hood, who is our lone oral communication speaker this evening. If there's anybody on Zoom that would like to make an oral communication, please press star 9 or use the raise your hand function now to let us know that you'd like to also make public comments. Any member of the public may address the council on agency-related matters not on the agenda by requesting to speak during this section of the agenda. Mr. Hood, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. How many times have I said code red to this council? Let's send heartfelt wishes for a rapid and full recovery to LA and its citizens, and kudos to our fire department. Do you think, as I do, that LA's leaders regret not doing more to prepare for a likely dangerous future? More water, more clean energy, better foliage management, et cetera, et cetera. Vista has a cap that looks like a minimal effort written to check a box. It needs dramatic improvement. Vista's draft general plan update is similar. Do you really think a modest extension of business as usual over the next 25 years will protect us? What are the chances you too will regret not having done more? I ask that the general plan update address positive actions to improve the condition of all 9 planetary boundaries in Vista. I have reached out to staff asking to be heard about the plan improvements that have been rebuffed. I've asked the Environmental Commission to engage in deep discussions regarding positive environmental projects. Some have listened, but apparently most don't have the time. I was expecting a call to discuss project ideas, but after waiting several months, no call. Mayor, you minimize our climate crisis, yet say you want to run for higher office. I promise I will campaign against you unless you act boldly to better protect Vista. I'm available to explore options with you, and Councilman Fox, I'm in your district and would love to learn your views and share with you. Last summer, I personally, as president of North County Climate Change Alliance, called the Vista Fire District and asked for a speaker at one of our monthly Zoom calls to address and tell the public about measures to take with respect to fire safety. No one answered the call, and no one ever called back when I left messages. So this was a grand story, but I promise we're available, North County Climate Change Alliance. You know, I've just run out of time, sorry. Let's build a vibrant and safe Vista. Climate is code red, carpe diem. Come on, let's join the party and get it into our general plan update.
Next, we'll go to Zoom. We'll start with Megan Stewart, followed by Becky Rapp, then finally Judy String.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Megan Stewart, and I'm here to address a critical issue regarding public health and the opportunity we have to make proactive decisions. A recent article drafted by a physician and a public health professional highlighted the well-documented link between alcohol and cancer, identifying it as a leading preventable cause of 7 different types of cancer, including breast, colon, and liver cancers. Yet, public awareness of this fact is alarmingly low. Only 45% of Americans know the simple fact that alcohol increases cancer risk. The alcohol industry has long normalized its presence in our culture, from professional events to fundraisers, even those focused on health. It's been so effective that we rarely question its consequences of promoting and consuming this toxin. And now we are paying the consequence as it causes nearly 100,000 cancer cases and 20,000 deaths annually in the United States. We are at the early stages of the marijuana industry's growth, and it is assured to follow the same path as alcohol if we don't act now. The marijuana industry, like big alcohol, has immense lobbying power and the ability to shape public perception, often downplaying risks to health and safety for the sake of profit. We can already see the signs as marijuana is being marketed as a harmless or even health positive product, just as alcohol once was. It's important to recognize that we don't have to wait decades to acknowledge the consequences. This council has the opportunity to enact policies that prioritize public health by limiting advertising, regulating access, and promoting public education about the risks of marijuana use. Thank you so much for the time.
Becky Rapp.
Good evening, Mayor Franklin and council members. My name is Becky Rapp, and I'm a public health educator here tonight to speak to you regarding a serious public health concern regarding cannabis sold in California. A recent article published in the LA Times describes California's cannabis supply chain as having hidden pesticides and no public monitoring. This seems to be a reoccurring concern as the state has not yet figured out how to manage, monitor, and properly enforce safeguards implemented to protect the public. The public trusts that if a product is permitted to sell, then it is safe to consume. This fallacy was told to voters when the permitted marijuana industry was created. The Times analyzed hundreds of marijuana products and found that half of these products in California's permitted market contained chemicals or hidden pesticides, chemicals that have no approved public safety monitoring procedure. A systematic monitoring procedure is crucial when testing products before being sold to the public, and marijuana should be required to be under the same scrutiny as other products that are sold on the market. Our city has chosen to permit these businesses under the guise that the products being sold have been tested and are safe to consume. Perhaps it's time for the city to exercise its own product testing experiment, as the LA Times has done. The public deserves the honest truth about the products being sold in their communities, as well as what is being distributed online to those living in our city. The public believes that these products are being monitored, and the Department of Cannabis Control needs to be held accountable. If they are not properly tested, the city should be responsible for pulling them from the shelves until proven free from significant pesticides and other chemicals. Thank you.
Judy Strang.
Good evening, Vista City Council, Mayor Franklin, Judy Strang here. I'm a grandparent who has 3 children living in Vista and whose adult son teaches in the Vista School District. Care a great deal about what our children know and learn. And I thought I'd share with you, as well as maybe parents and grandparents who are listening, a wonderful new presentation. It's on YouTube, and it's done by our own Dr. Renette Lev, a well-known doctor here in San Diego County. She's an emergency room and addiction medicine specialist, and it's called It's Just Pot, What's the Problem? The presentation is appropriate for anyone who cares about young people, and I know that you have evidenced that at your city council meetings. She explains that as an emergency room doctor in San Diego, she's been gravely, personally, and professionally dismayed that there was a 690% increase in emergency room visits over the last 4 years, where the primary diagnosis was associated with marijuana use. That equates to 37 cases a day on average in each of the county's hospitals. So imagine the cost to patients, their families, employers, to medical staff, perhaps even to our law enforcement departments. She also shares that 17% of adults who smoke pot, this is by adults, anyone over 18, are clinically diagnosed with a cannabis syndrome disorder. And if they are daily users, it rises to 50%. And then she describes the misery of cannabis withdrawal, which I'm sure you've seen these described before: sweating, tremors, sleeplessness, severe agitation, depression. So why do I mention this all to you today? I think as a city who cares a great deal about young adults, a good place that we could start about their quality of life is to perhaps to reduce, and in my world, eliminate, but certainly reduce the number of marijuana businesses here in our city. Thank you.
Okay, our last speaker for oral communications is Madison on Zoom.
Hello, good evening, City Council members, and thank you for the opportunity to address you. Tonight, I want to relay some information from a recent study from the journal CNS Drugs about the mental health impacts of cannabis use, and highlight the fact that 3 in 10 cannabis users have a cannabis use disorder. As cannabis use increases, both for recreational and medical purposes, we must understand the full spectrum of its effects, especially on those with psychiatric disorders. Frequent THC use has been linked to exacerbated symptoms of mood disorders, anxiety, psychosis, and PTSD, potentially making treatment more difficult or less effective. Studies show that youth and those with a genetic predisposition to mental health disorders are at a higher risk for negative outcomes related to cannabis use. This is particularly concerning as cannabis use becomes more normalized and accessible. Young people are learning that despite what they've been told, cannabis is addictive, and its use can create mental instability and long-term physical health problems. According to the CDC, 30% of marijuana users meet the clinical definition for having a cannabis use disorder. As we continue to evaluate the implications of cannabis use, it is essential that we approach this issue with a clear understanding of the risks, particularly the long-term consequences for mental health. I urge this council to consider these findings in shaping policy and to pay attention to the research to ensure the health and well-being of our residents. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now close the opportunity for oral communications during this meeting. We'll go now to our consent calendar. The recommendations on the consent calendar will be enacted in one motion unless an item is removed from the calendar. Any member of the public may remove an item by submitting a request to speak card to the clerk secretary or by using the raise their hand feature on Zoom or by pressing *9. Items removed from the consent calendar will be considered immediately following the adoption of the calendar. We have 9 consent items this evening. Deputy Mayor Melendez.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. That item is approved unanimously. That'll bring us to the first of 2 discussion items this evening. The first is regarding the establishment of a eucalyptus tree maintenance program. If there are any members of the public that wish to speak on this item, they may indicate so by using the raise their hand feature, by pressing *9 or submitting a request to speak card. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation. Our Public Works Director, Chris Arce, will introduce this item.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of the City Council. My name is Chris Arce, Director of Public Works. Next to me is Yale Jeffrey, the Park Supervisor. Tonight we'll be discussing the eucalyptus tree maintenance program, and I'll let Yale take on the PowerPoint from here.
Good evening. As Mr. Arce said, I'm Yale Jeffrey, the Park Supervisor. I'm going to be presenting to you the eucalyptus tree maintenance program. So our standard street tree trimming schedule is on a 4-year cycle. Public Works currently has 2 International Society of Arboriculture, or ISA certified arborists. I'm one of those 2. The city contracts with an outside entity to conduct tree trimming activities. We do not have our own internal tree trimming crew, so it's just with our contractor. Our contractor is West Coast Arborist, or WCA, and they do the maintenance of our street trees and the cost our street trees, and the cost to maintain our current street and park trees inventory is approximately $423,000 annually. There are currently 16,778 trees in our tree inventory. That includes the parks and the right-of-way trees. In November of 2023, an additional $250,000 was awarded in the 4th quarter for the removal of large eucalyptus trees identified as high risk by the city arborist. Right here you can see a map. It's showing all of the 1,047 eucalyptus trees that we have in our right-of-way inventory. And then we've got it kind of broken down here where you can see on Eucalyptus Avenue, we've got 37 eucalyptus trees. Ocean View Drive is 20. Alta Vista Drive is 89. And then Vailview Drive is where we have majority of our large eucalyptus trees with 121 there. So what we're asking tonight is we came up with 4 options. Option 1 was to trim and inspect the 1,047 eucalyptus trees in the right-of-way annually with an annual expense of $324,000. Option 2 was to trim and inspect the 1,047 eucalyptus trees kind of in the confined area of where we have a large amount of them in the public right-of-way every 2 years. And that would be biannual expense of $162,000. Option 3 is to trim and inspect the 267 eucalyptus trees on Alta Vista, Eucalyptus, Vailview, and Ocean View annually with an expense of $115,000. And then option 4 was to trim and inspect the 267 eucalyptus trees on those same areas every 2 years with the biannual expense of $58,000, which is the recommended from our contractor, West Coast Arborist, and then was also the recommendation from the Environmental Commission. And that is all of the questions that I have. We are here for any questions.
I'm for option 4. Deputy Mayor Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for this presentation. You know, we're just discussing many of the fire risks associated with this type of growth. I personally love eucalyptus trees. The smell of them reminds me of home, right? Growing up here in Vista, they're iconic along many of our trails, but they are absolutely devastating environmentally. They suppress growth of native plants. And so I think it's really important for us to consider managing these eucalyptus trees a little bit more. So I'm supportive of option 4, and you know, as much as eucalyptus trees have been a really big part of Vista's history, it's not necessarily the primary type of tree that we should be promoting. So is this including removal of trees or just maintenance of trees?
The numbers that we have there, it's just the maintenance, so it would be an inspection and a trimming. If we went with option 4 every 2 years of the large eucalyptus trees, that would be something is during the maintenance and the inspection process, if our contractor deems the tree is, you know, recommended for removal, then that would be another action that we would have to take.
Okay, so at that point of investigating, we'll see if it's necessary to remove. Okay.
Just to jump in here, we haven't historically removed the eucalyptus trees. Really only in the last few years have we recognized the need to start removing some, but this will allow us to identify the problem trees, and we will be budgeting separately for the removal.
All right, well, I would go ahead and make a motion for us to move forward with option 4 so that we can really take stock of our tree inventory and begin to make better improvements. Thanks.
Councilmember O'Donnell, Mr. Hood wanted to be heard. Hear him next. Mr. Hood, please come forward.
Thank you again. Options for trimming range from 1,000 trees for $324,000 or 250 odd trees for $58,000 biannually. How did the low-cost option get recommended? My guess is simply that it's the low-cost option. Was a risk analysis done? If so, where is it? If not, we're just taking a swag, hoping whichever choice we make is good enough. Questions. If eucalyptus trees represent a fire danger hazard, how much danger is reduced by trimming 1/4 of them every 2 years? How much risk is reduced by annual versus biannual trimming versus 5-year cycles or some other one? Or no trimming? Shouldn't these questions be part of the discussion? How should the fires in LA impact our deliberations? AccuWeather projected LA fire recovery will cost $250 billion. Is Vista prepared for proportional expense? and crisis? Eucalyptus trees are not native to our community or even our country. They provide little shade, sequester minimum carbon, and they're a fire hazard. Has any analysis of the cost of replacing them with native, less fire-prone trees been considered? There's a strong argument to replace them. This is a topic worthy of discussion, but the core issue is what should Vista's greening look like in light of our real fire danger and climate crisis? For example, I suggest we plan for a citywide canopied trail where everyone lives within 10 minutes of the trail. Our environment is code red for humanity. Please act accordingly. Please do some risk analysis.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
I will ask that question from the dais. How did we come up with option 4 as a recommended plan? Because that would tell me that there's about an 8-year gap then. If I'm understanding the math correctly, are we looking at 67? Are those the identified problem trees, or would that be a cycle of every 2 years we're looking at a new 267 trees until we reach the 1,047 number?
I'm gonna jump in here, Chris, actually, because I directed these guys to do this, and I don't want them to have to answer the question. The 1,000 trees is the total number of eucalyptus trees citywide that we have in our inventory. They're scattered all around in parks and open spaces. The 267 trees are the trees that are in neighborhoods that are adjacent to or near property that can cause damage. So that's the way we identified the 267 versus the 1,000. We wanted to focus on the 267 trees in the vicinity of property because they have the highest potential to cause damage to those properties, as happened up on Alta Vista Drive when a branch fell off and damaged a truck. So we're looking at them from the perspective of safety and the limbs falling and damaging property. That's what we're trimming them for. Has nothing to do with fire abatement. The only way to abate these trees is to remove them. We cannot possibly afford going in and removing all of these trees that are massive, and there's massive costs. So we're trying to manage it in an effective way, starting with the trimming program.
That makes sense. And I thank you for the report as well. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to second the Deputy Mayor's motion to support option 4. I would imagine that we are also just keeping an eye on eucalyptus trees that are failing in areas outside of residential. At least I would hope that we would be. Okay, so we do have a maintenance program for that. And to Mr. Hood's point, the cost of replacing those trees would probably have to be just huge. But if there's a program in which we can get funding for it, I would be open to it. So if there are any grant programs out there that allow that?
We are continuing to pursue every grant opportunity that we can on this issue, yes.
I know you are, and thank you for that. So those are all my comments.
I would just add a little context to this too, so right now we're complaint and observation of our public works team driven with regard to responding to these trees. We don't have a proactive program now, and this is what we're here to do, is to implement a proactive program. Isn't that right?
No, we are in a proactive program. We have 4 quadrants, and it's on our website. The tree cycles that come through on the four quadrants. So right now we're on the lower part of Vista. We did on 24, 25. So every year, all these trees, ukes, not just ukes, all the trees that are on the street right away are being inspected and trimmed, once every 4 years.
So this would take it, the recommendation 4 takes it from every 4 years to every 2 years.
For just those specific ukes, yes.
Right, okay, for the trees. So we're stepping up with regard to a tree that we've identified as being a tree that's created a specific hazard.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to make that point. Councilmember Contreras.
I actually disagree with option 4. I'm sorry. I think option 4 is a good place to start with expansion to option 2 in the 3rd year. I think it would be good to assess how option 4, goes with the smaller amount of trees. But I think that opening up the scope to the full amount of trees in the future, I like phasing in to that, which is what I would see with adopting option 4 and expanding to option 2 in the future. However, I would like a review of how option 4 is going prior to enacting option 2. So I don't know if my council would be amendable to this. And if you are, you could second, but I'm going to make a substitute motion that we adopt option 4 and expand and have the information gathered and kind of any relative stats come back to council. And in the third year, look at expanding to option 4. But prior to the expansion, I want that information to come back to council. So I just think that we do need to have a little bit more care for all of these trees. We're seeing really high winds, and this is another thing where climate change just is driving a lot of erratic weather events. So I am concerned that as the winds continue to increase, that we may see some issues. And then I also am concerned about a liability issue now that we know that there's 1,047 trees that need to be tended to, that we would neglect to tend all of those. So I
want to make it clear, though, we are tending to them every 4 years. So
Okay.
you're asking for more frequent on the remaining
I think we need
trees.
to increase, or even, every 3 years, but every 4 years is just not enough. I like every 2 years, but I want to see kind of some information as to how the rollout for option 2 went prior to moving forward with option 4. But I just want that to kind of be set as the long-term process for the council at that time to review. So anyways, I'm going to make that as a substitute motion, and that's it for me.
So just to ask that, is that similar to what we're already doing, or just, I want to get clarity on it, because if the direction of the motion is to bring this back in 3 years so we can reevaluate it, I'd be supportive of that. I'm always up for more information. I have no problem with that. But if it's something that we're already doing that's within our warehouse of information, is that something that we can get prior to 3 years?
Yeah, we can come back and report out whenever you'd like. What I got was option 4 with a desire in the third year to go to option 2 and do all of the trees starting in year 3. That's what you were asking.
But that
So
would
we're
still-
not recommending that right now. The staff recommendation is just option 4 to do every 2 years, the 267 trees.
But with direction to bring it back in 3 years, I don't know if that would be.
That's something we can, we're going to bring it back at the end of year 2 anyway, because we're going to have to revisit where we are with the policy
So
and fund it for year.
Would that make the motion a bit moot? That's what I just want to make sure, because I don't want to.
So let me clarify. We will bring it back in 2 years. If the council wants us to do the 1,000 trees at that point, you'll have the opportunity to give us that direction.
Okay.
Yeah, let's add that direction, and if everybody's comfortable with that, to come back in, we could 2 or 3 years?
2 years.
Come back in 2 years. So we're going with option 4, come back in 2 years. Is everybody good with that?
Yeah, I support that. I think that it formalizes the policy, so staff has clear direction that they do come back to us in 2 years, because as it is now, it seems like it's on an automated, right, every 2 years. So I'll amend my motion rather than seconding your substitute. I'll amend my motion to make those considerations, and if my seconder is.
I will second.
Game, great.
Councilmember Contreras, did you still want to be heard?
Yeah, I do. I accept that. I'll go ahead and vote in favor of it. I definitely want to understand the impact that we're going to have. I want to be able to hear from the public on the smaller sample size of 267 that, could pose an immediate risk to some of these structures. And then at that point, if the feedback that we're getting from the public, if the feedback that we're getting from our side, our consultant, right, our employees, if it makes sense, which I think it should and could make sense to broaden our scope to the full amount of 1,047 trees, then at that point, we can make that, we can formalize that. So thank you so much. I just want to make sure that we keep our eye on this total amount of trees, and also the fact that new trees could also pop up.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. The motion is approved unanimously. That'll bring us to our next item regarding protected bike lanes on South Melrose Drive within the city of Oceanside. Any members of the public wishing to speak on this item may indicate so by using the raise your hand feature by pressing *9 or submitting a request to speak card. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation. Traffic Engineering Division Manager Sam Hassanen will introduce the item. Mr. Hassanen.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a quick background on the item. Through previous actions, the City Council approved the implementation of bike lanes and major city roadways, including South Melrose Drive. And the project, as of today, has been designed and a construction contract has been awarded. There is a 1,700-foot segment of South Melrose Drive that traverses through the city of Oceanside. And Councilmember O'Donnell requested staff to explore continuing the protected bike lanes through this segment in Oceanside. So staff worked with the design consultant on a concept with an estimated cost of $150,000. That would be to continue the protected bike lanes through the Oceanside segment. And the city staff met with the City of Oceanside staff, who supports the protected bike lanes, but requested that the City of Vista fund the improvements. Currently, the protected bike lane project has a balance of approximately $540,000, and this is after all the encumbrances for the construction contract award. And this amount is available for construction management, inspection, and contingencies. This is a map of the area that shows the segment that goes through the city of Oceanside. It's kind of a triangle that comes through into our city, and that's the 1,700-foot segment. This is another map of the same segment, just without the aerial background. So the staff recommendation is we're looking for the City Council to provide direction on the implementation of protected bike lanes within the City of Oceanside's portion of South Melrose Drive. That concludes my presentation.
I just want to say at the outset of this, I support this, but I struggle with the precedent of us investing to maintain the streets of a city that's our neighbor that has a significantly larger tax base than we do. And so I would volunteer to reach out, even write a letter asking our Oceanside neighbors to at least partner with us in the funding on this. Maybe we want to have a resolution requesting that as a council. And I would encourage all the council members to reach out to Oceanside. But this is a stretch of road that's always been a frustration because I would like to see Oceanside stronger with us more, partner with us more strongly in the maintenance of this stretch. It's a sort of a forgotten piece of roadway. So I appreciate you bringing it forward, but I'd love to pursue, at least at first, I'd love to pursue seeing if we could get them to step up on this. Councilmember O'Donnell.
Mayor, I could not agree with you more. When you say that the city has, they support bike lanes but request the city to fund the project, is that a kind way of saying they said no?
Pretty much. It was, this was our meeting with just their engineering staff, and it was reiterated really throughout the meeting that, yes, they love it, but as long as the City of Vista pays for it.
Yeah, here's my issue. One thing, and Mayor, I would like to reach out to Oceanside first and see if we can work with the council there to see if they'd be open to the idea of funding this project before we put any of our tax dollars into it. The reason being, specific to what you brought up, I cannot tell you how many emails I've gotten, and a phone call, all of it, from residents complaining about that stretch of Melrose not being up to par with their travels and the potholes. And because it's downhill, it gets washed out every time they get filled when we did have rain. But I share the same concern of the maintenance aspect of it, especially when I don't feel as though they maintain the stretch of road as it is. So I'd be unwilling to make a deal that says that we'll fund it if they maintain it, because I haven't seen in my time living in this community that they have maintained it adequately up to this point. But I am open to it as well, and I would support sending a letter, a formal letter as a request, to see if they would partner with us, if not take on the full responsibility. I mean, we're talking about a multi-million-dollar investment that we're making, and we're asking them for a very small increment relative to the project to complete it, and it will benefit their residents as well, especially in an area, whoever was not familiar with the area, Ocean Hills is right back over there. It's right off Cannon where Lake Elementary is. There are students that travel, young people, but also there's a lot of people in that retirement community. It's a 55-plus community that are very active members of Oceanside and Vista, and I'm sure they'd be grateful to have a protected bike lane in that stretch. So I want to say thank you very much for getting back to us so quickly with this information. I appreciate all the work you did. I don't know if we need to make a motion to submit a formal letter.
No, we can write a letter to the city without a formal motion.
So I would agree, and that would be my direction to staff. But thank you so much again for bringing this to us.
Deputy Mayor Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a great opportunity to talk about a project that is going to be contiguous, right? And something that's also regional. And the direction that I want to provide is really in line with what was already said, which is the precedent, right? We have neighbors, and the actions of our neighbors are going to affect us. But we do stay on our own separate turfs for a reason. And I can really feel the difference between the roads that we maintain and when I'm traveling in other cities. And I know that we have been really dedicated at our facilities management. Our roads are awesome, and we're on top of it when it comes to sealing, repairing, and upkeep of the potholes and making sure that our roads are top notch. And then to add a new facility like a protected bike lane to that, there's a lot of things I'd want to see from the city of Oceanside before even building this out for them. Do they have plans in the works for their own type of protected bike lanes, and would it be contiguous, right? If it's something that they do build out, is there a way to make sure that it matches what we're building? And so I just would be concerned about the precedent of really spending any money, right? Even if we go halvesies. The maintenance, I don't have full confidence of the maintenance because all I can do is control our own maintenance practices. And then I, don't feel comfortable with spending, even if it's $150,000, that's $150,000 that need to go to Vista Streets. But I think there's another opportunity. I'm totally down to join a letter on to Oceanside to say, work with us on this, right? Is there something we can do? But I also think this is an opportunity for regional collaboration and even including our assembly member, our congressman. I think it would be great if we reached out to Assemblymember Lori Davies and our council sent a letter. She represents City of Oceanside and the City of Vista. Same with our Congressman Mike Levin. Representing both of these cities, and if there are earmarked funds available, and I know in a couple of weeks we are, in the next couple of weeks we're expected to meet with our representatives. It's a great opportunity to kind of get them on board with a project like this. And I'm sure if we come to Oceanside and say, hey, at least lobby with us and try to see if we can get some regional funds for this, and then you maintain it, they might be a little bit more helpful to us. So it sounds like they did say no, which, I mean, if we were in the same position, we would probably do that too. But I would really love to see this portion completed. I think it's really important for it to be completed. I think there's a couple different ways we can go about doing that. So my direction would be, yes, let's have some really robust communication with the City of Oceanside. And then also let's look at our regional leaders and see if they can support us, because it's big love, North County. I think we can support City of Oceanside and City of Vista by building this contiguous. Thanks.
Councilmember Contreras.
Yeah, I agree with, sending our request over to the city of Oceanside if they hadn't received it already. And I also agree with the idea of, communicating with elected officials at the state and federal level to see if we can get some funding to complete this, because we're putting over $3 million into creating a real safety difference for folks that are using their bike, and then also folks that are walking, because you have that additional buffer when you have a protected bike lane. And this is Melrose is a critical corridor, so if they can help with this small amount, compared to how many miles we're putting in, I mean, this would be fantastic. And they just passed a sales tax measure, so I mean, come on. Yeah, so, I would really love to see them step up to the plate and knock this one out of the park. It's very low-hanging fruit, so I agree with everything that has been said. The other thing, too, is, on our end, hopefully we can continue to move forward with reducing speed limits, because that would be within our purview, and it does add to the safety of this corridor and in this downhill section. Cars are just flying through, and I don't even know what that looks like. I mean, because this is Oceanside.
Yes. Just because simply it's obviously outside the city of Vista jurisdiction, and that goes for the speed limit reductions as well.
Wow. That is it. This is just insane that we can't control this, because this is like a terrible place, right? And I don't know. I wish we did have control over this section. I don't know if we need to start putting gates up. I mean, is this going to be a toll road section? I don't know. It is absolutely terrible. I'm so sorry, Councilmember O'Donnell, that you have to deal with this crap, because we really pride ourselves on having routine maintenance for our roads. So I don't know. We'll see. If we can get them to pave this in a timely fashion, that would be one win. And if we can get them to actually continue the gap in our wonderful bicycle protected bike lane that's going to be coming up, then I don't know, we should start as a council playing the lottery or something. But yeah, let's write a letter and move forward with our advocacy and lobbying.
Yeah, I've mentioned to the city manager for years, I'd like to see, for 1,700 feet, I think it'd be great if they would just pay us to maintain the entire section. Because when our asphalt paving machines come to a stop, pull forward 1,700 feet, and then start the work again, I mean, we could achieve a cost efficiency that they couldn't in paving that one stretch of road, just continuing the progress. And I can never understand how we've not sufficiently convinced them of the utility of that. But I don't know how hard we've tried either. So I think we should continue to suggest that. And if that doesn't work, then maybe we should put some little signs up that say, leaving Vista, and then welcome back to Vista at the end of that stretch. But before we do that, let's open up a formal diplomacy and see if we can make some progress. Councilmember O'Donnell.
So you're not just trying to annex the land, is what I'm understanding?
We don't want to annex it. Oceanside would tell you that this was the city of Vista's great folly. We did not want Ocean Hills in the city of Vista.
It's my district, and I have no idea how those lines were drawn. It is just chaos in that little corridor. So I just wanted to, yes, I love the idea of turning this into a regional solution and getting our elected leaders at a higher level involved to see if we can get some funding from the state or county or federally if we can. While I doubt that would be the case, it's always worth trying. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I mean, it is a stretch of road that just makes zero sense to me every time we drive it. And I would love for it to become a part of Vista. The church I go to is right there. We have the Aegis Senior Center right there. We have all the apartments that are right there on the other side. I mean, it would be a tremendous asset. And if we can get Ocean Hills, that's another fantastic thing because the tax base there would be great. But I just wanted to be supportive of turning it into regional and support the idea of sending it to our higher up elected officials as well to try and get them involved once we speak also with the city of Oceanside.
So many years ago, the Vista City Council thought that they could stop the Ocean Hills development by not acceding to their requests. Instead, they went to the city of Oceanside and cut a deal there and became part of Oceanside, which is why Oceanside has that bizarre triangular appendage that sneaks all the way into the side of Vista. So it's kind of an interesting lesson. I never forgot that when we're talking about things happening in our sphere of influence, we can either control them and set our own destiny, or maybe one of our neighbors will. All right, sounds like we have a clear direction here for staff. Thanks for bringing this item forward. With that, we don't have any more oral communication speakers beyond the first 10. So that'll bring us to the conclusion of our meeting. And at this time, to comments from staff. Any comments from the city clerk's office? Any from the city attorney's office? City manager?
I have one brief announcement, actually two, Mayor. One is the pickleball courts at Thibodeau Park are closed for maintenance through February 2nd. We have signs up and we are dealing with the unhappy pickleballers, but we hope to have it back open soon, thanks to all the patience of our residents out there. And then I believe you have the other announcement, so I'll leave it to you. That's it, thank you.
Very good. Councilman Fox.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to thank my beautiful wife for letting me serve on the council. Remind everyone it's Taco Tuesday. I'll be out of town for the next week and a half, but I will have access to my communication devices. So if there's anything pressing, please don't hesitate to let me know. And have a great week.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
I'm sure your wife will love you answering phone calls and emails while you're on vacation. So I would not do that. Just pickleball hours. I just want everybody to know that the new hours will be in effect when the courts reopen. So the hours will be shortened during that time frame. I believe until summer or spring months. We are actively and always looking for an alternate location for the transition, as we discussed at the August 27th meeting. So we will keep you apprised on that situation when it does come forward. Fritz, congratulations again on Firefighter of the Year. You're a tremendous person, so I could not be more well-deserved. Again, thank you to the fire and first responders, not just for going up to LA, but I've seen all of you out at all the different fires that have broken out throughout the San Diego region. So I'm grateful for keeping everywhere safe, including our community. I'd like to thank my wife as well, as always, for letting me serve on this wonderful council. And then after our next meeting, I will be scheduling a public safety town hall. I just want to let the community know I don't have a date set, but I just want to put it on your radar and intend to do that sometime in the next 4 weeks to 5 weeks. We'll try and get you ample notice when that happens. But 8 o'clock, I'll quit my comments. You all have a great Tuesday.
Councilmember Contreras.
If anybody wants to help Guerrera Sin Acción pick up trash, they do it every single Wednesday. I do want to report out that unfortunately I didn't make it to vice chair of NCTD because there was a weighted vote pulled, and my disqualification was having the wrong party registration. So it ended up going to someone who won on a 51% weighted vote, and that was his first meeting ever. So unfortunately, these types of actions are really terrible, and it really just puts us back, because we need someone who understands public transit, uses it, and knows that folks want to connect on it in a better way. So hopefully we can do better in the future. But I just want to let you all know that I did have the support of the city of Del Mar, the city of Solana Beach, the city of Encinitas, the city of Oceanside, the city of Carlsbad, and of course I voted for myself, the city of Vista.
Deputy Mayor Melendez.
Very pleased to hear that you won the popular vote in that. I'm really looking forward to all the assignments this upcoming year. I met with the Sandag Regional group today, which represents, City of Vista, San Marcos, Escondido, and others. And, we have some assignments to work on. Was able to be placed, on the Borders Committee. And there's a lot of work to be done on Sandag, so these committees can be stretched kind of thin, right, with representation. But as much as I can, I will do my best to report out to you what I'm learning. We do have a Board of Directors meeting this upcoming Friday, as well as a Clean Energy Alliance meeting, first one of the year, this Thursday. So lots to be done there as well. I know our staff have been participating in Lobby Day for CEA and the clean energy sector. And I've been in communication with our higher level elected officials as well. So lots of work to do. Appreciate everybody's collaboration. Great meeting, great discussions, and hope everybody has a wonderful night and enjoy your vacation. Everybody have a good one.
I share your frustration about that weighted vote issue at Sandag and wish that they would get rid of, what was it, AB 805 that used the weighted vote to overrule the plurality or majority of the cities. Today is a very special birthday. Did you know? Today is the 62nd birthday of the city of Vista. I don't know where yes, happy birthday, Vista. I don't know where did the 61st year go? I feel like last year was 60th, but it's been 2 years.
It extended.
Right? We had a big celebration. I don't even know that we stopped to remember the 61st because it was anticlimactic compared to the 60th. But today is great progress, and we are, as we got to highlight yesterday. Several of you were there. We got to highlight all of the really cool stuff. Aaron Gilliam and Fred Tracy made an awesome State of the City video, and they let me be a starring role in it. And we had so many amazing accomplishments as a city that the video was 23 minutes long. And I told Aaron and Fred, we really should cut this down to 15 minutes. And we all agreed there was nothing that was unimportant enough to cut out of it. So we did some cool stuff as a city. And the State of the City speech, you can watch online on our city's webpage, or you can Google Mayor John Franklin, YouTube, and it will come right up, and hope you'll take a look at it and enjoy it. The Vista Sheriff Senior Volunteer Patrol Program, the Vista Sheriff Senior Volunteer Program, I think there was a patrol missing in there somewhere, offers residents aged 50 and older a meaningful way to give back to our community. Volunteers assist with patrolling neighborhoods, traffic control, monitoring schools, enforcing parking regulations. That's all right. I'll just wait till you're done. They also, we're almost done. We're almost done. Two more sentences. They also, it's hard to read what the, they also provide unique services like free vacation checks to safeguard homes while residents are away, and the You Are Not Alone, or YANA program, for those seniors that need somebody to check on them. Supporting homebound elderly disabled residents through check-in visits. For more information and a really good time, I'll just say, I think we all know our senior volunteers have a great time together, great sense of rapport and community. So check it out and give the Vista Volunteers Office a call at 760-940-4434. And a big thank you to my beautiful wife, Shauna, for being with me yesterday at the State of the City and for allowing me to serve and be with you at still a relatively early hour of 8:07. We are adjourned.